everybody, Mid here at Stonehouse Lavender again. I'm back to reach out, give you guys more tips and tricks and how to plan a wedding. Do us a favor, click on the little subscribe button down here at the bottom. Make sure that you follow along our journey. We're gonna share some behind the scenes coming up this season you don't wanna miss. All about how to plan a wedding. Okay, here's a question for you. What about a honeymoon fund? Do you put something out there for people to donate and toss a little extra cash into the jar? Well, I can tell you not very many people do that anymore. And the reason for that is because guests are actually spending on an average $430 just to attend the wedding. That's according to Wedding Wire and The Knot. And these folks do their research. They've calculated in things like the travel, the hotel, the food expenses, clothing that they've had to purchase, the amount they've invested in the gift for you. This also includes some of those indirect costs that we aren't calculating, such as what if they have to take time off work or if they have to pay for a babysitter. So all of these things start to compound really quickly. So a wedding is actually kind of expensive for a guest to attend as well. Some other variables that play a role into that average though are things like if the guests are local to the venue, is there gonna have to be airline tickets involved, hotel stay involved? If you're having a wedding in an area where you and your fiance are both from and you're not incurring a lot of additional expenses on your guests, that's a different situation. But most of the time, a lot of family members are traveling to come and celebrate you. So the last thing you wanna do is put a jar out to ask them to give you more money. I know that this is the time for everybody to celebrate and donate their, time and love, and that's how some people show their love. But it's kind of embarrassing at the end of the night when you still have a jar sitting there and there's only a few dollars in it. So we don't recommend doing a honeymoon fund. I think that people are already giving you money and the cards and things like that. Use that money towards that. So our final vote is a no for the honeymoon fund. Okay, another question that we get asked a lot. Do we need to have a wedding planner or a day of coordinator? I'm gonna say an emphatic yes. Yes, 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 yes. You definitely wanna get somebody who's gonna help coordinate the day of the wedding, somebody who can take the stress off of you, stress off of the bride's mom, stress off of some of the immediate family members that have really helped and given so much to invest in this day. A wedding planner would be our number one choice, our number one vote, and they're gonna work through the wedding planning process with you on how to plan the wedding. They're gonna help you select your vendors. They're gonna offer guidelines, suggestions, ideas. They're gonna have experience with timelines. A wedding planner may cost a little bit more, but what we can say is that at the end of the day, they are totally worth the investment. They keep things running so much smoother than if you're trying to get just an aunt or a cousin or an uncle or somebody to be your go-to person. Now, a day of coordinator is usually the person that's gonna kind of help coordinate, hence the name, coordinate all of the activities that are going on the day of the wedding. So they're gonna work with the vendors. They're gonna make sure that there's a timeline in place and that everybody's following this timeline. They're gonna make sure that people are setting up in the right place. They're gonna kind of help direct the traffic of the guests as the guests arrive. So if some guests show up early, where do they go? What are you gonna do? Do you go ahead and seat them? So a day of coordinator is very instrumental. At our venue, we actually require them to have somebody who is going to be that point of contact. You don't want an issue in the parking lot the day of your wedding and someone comes running in to the mother of the bride or the bride to say, hey, we have a problem. Those are things a day of coordinator or a wedding planner are going to take care of you and take care of the day. You're never going to know what happened. There are a number of times where we've had situations, for example, one time the cake was being delivered and one of the sections of the cake actually slid off into the parking lot. They were able to dress it up, fix it, and the bride never even noticed. By the time they put the live floral decorations around it, the bride never even noticed. Now, had it been the bride or the bride's mom that was trying to coordinate everything, that just would have completely stressed them out even more. Or one time, we actually had the cake delivered about 15 minutes before the ceremony was to start. The day of coordinator and the planner are going to be the ones to reach out to those vendors, find out what's going on, what's the delay. And that way the bride isn't worrying about trying to get pictures taken in the midst of, where's my wedding cake? Are we going to even have one? So I highly recommend it. That's the best investment you can do for your wedding. A wedding planner will also help decorate ahead of time. Some day of coordinators will do that the day of the wedding as well. It really depends on how much help you want to navigate through this process. Wedding planners are amazing. They never get enough credit. I'm going to tell you, we've gone down that path a few times with a baby shower here, just trying to roll things along, and I can't imagine trying to do a wedding all on my own. So to answer that question, should I have a wedding planner or day of coordinator? Absolutely, yes. All right, here's another frequently asked question. What about a sit-down dinner versus a buffet? What should we do? What would be the most appropriate situation? It's going to depend on a lot of variables. One is going to be, first of all, do you have the space to have a buffet set up? What is your guest count? That's going to dictate a lot, because a sit-down meal, a plated sit-down meal, is actually going to be a higher cost than a buffet. One of the things that people look at is not only just having a sit-down meal, but does the caterer have enough servers to actually be able to efficiently serve all of the guests? If you have a 300 guest wedding, you're going to need quite a few servers to be able to do that. It's a wonderful idea. You just want to make sure that everybody's getting their plate when the food is warm. At a buffet, you can continue to rotate the warm trays. It really depends on what kind of vibe you want. I can say a more formal wedding, you're gonna have a sit-down plated meal. Something more relaxed or open, a buffet is a wonderful idea. Actually, one wedding, we had a couple who helped serve at the buffet line as a part of their thank you to the guests. The guests absolutely loved it. They thought that was such a neat idea. And the couple actually turned around and were able to have a one-on-one conversation with every guest as they were getting their food, instead of trying to work the tables all night, and make sure they have a chance to go and say hello and thank you to every guest that came. This really gave them the opportunity to say hi and speak with everybody that attended the wedding. So it was a really neat idea. Some people think that the bride and groom are the guests of honor, therefore they should not be serving the food, and that's okay. Like, that's absolutely fine. It's just really what you want to do. What kind of vibe do you want to create? That also kind of dictates, if you're setting your tables like family style seating, I'm going to recommend probably a buffet style food. If you have more of the round tables, or like we have, you can see here in the background, the farm tables where there's only so many to a table, then a plated meal is completely sufficient and you can really dress it up. One other thing that a plated meal versus a buffet are going to dictate is your table settings. So some people like to use a charger with some plates and put the silverware at the table. Really dresses the table up and makes it look nice. If you're having a plated meal, you need to consider that, because the plates are going to actually come out. You're not going to have them setting in front of the guests as they arrive. So there are a few different variables that you need to consider. How do you want the table to look? The aesthetics of things, the type of food that you're serving, and of course, a budget. How much are you wanting to spend to do that? Okay, so here's the next one for you. I know this wedding is supposed to be about celebrating the bride and groom, but as the bride and groom, you guys also have to act as hosts. So you want to ask, what are some things that the guests care about and don't care about? What are some things they may be interested in having at the wedding? So I can tell you, number one, the guests really aren't as excited about the bouquet toss as you think. If you think about it, whenever you go to a wedding, is the DJ not trying to drag all of the single ladies up onto the dance floor? Now, once you've got a little bit of alcohol in them, it's a nice little competition, nice little fist fight up there to catch that bouquet. But in all fairness, that's not something. A lot of the traditional things that we all consider a part of a wedding are the things that the guests probably don't care as much about. So for example, they really don't care about the verbiage and the wording in the ceremony, or like if a poem's being read. Those are memories for you. Those are memories for your fiance, for you guys to really think about what is meaningful to you. One of the biggest things that, we see a lot of people kind of paying attention but not paying attention would be like a mother-son dance or a father-daughter dance. I'm not saying that I'll give these moments up, because those are memories that you're going to create. The photographer's usually able to capture some beautiful, emotionally driven moments in those pictures that you'll want to capture forever. But on the flip side of that, consider the length of the song. See if you can get like the shortened version of the song. When you have a 5-6 minute song up there, you're really, really losing the attention of your guests. We had one couple, they did an epic mother and son dance. They actually created a mix of songs, a lot of hip hop songs. They choreographed this whole hip hop dance that they broke out into, and the guests absolutely loved that. So think about something that kind of entertains them, something that creates a memory that you can actually do in the middle of that, father-daughter dance or mother-son dance. So one of the other things that are very traditional as a part of the wedding is a toast. I highly, highly recommend to you, whoever is doing the toast, give them a time frame. Give them a minute, or not just 1 minute, but give them how much time you want to allocate to that. We had a wedding at the venue where, unfortunately, one of the groomsmen decided to give a very lengthy toast, which lasted about 20 minutes. Unfortunately, some of the people in the bridal party got frustrated, and lo and behold, there were some fights that broke out at the wedding. It was definitely heartbreaking for the bride and groom that these people that came to celebrate them had to make the day about something else. So think about that. When you are having people, or when there's a list of folks that want to do a toast, give them a time frame. Give them a length on how long that toast can or cannot be. You don't want people sitting here listening for 20 minutes to all of your memories down memory lane. Those are things you can share with them privately. So the moral of the story is, unfortunately, the one thing that guests probably don't enjoy the most about a wedding are a lot of those traditional things. The bouquet toss, some of the wording in the ceremony, and the readings in the ceremony, maybe a toast. So those are some things to consider just from a time allocation, to make sure that you are giving an ample amount of time to capture those memories and those moments, but you're not boring your guests, because unfortunately you are still a host and you want your guests to have a wonderful time. Okay, while we're on the topic of guests, we're gonna make that one of our last tips for the day. So a lot of times folks are always asking the question, what do we do with our guests after the ceremony? Because there's gonna be a time frame after the ceremony before the reception begins. Obviously, if you're traveling to a reception site, that kind of takes up some of the time, but it doesn't take up all of the time. So you want a time frame where you can help occupy some of their time without them feeling bored, or worst case, feeling hangry. So with that, appetizers are always a go-to. You want to start to kind of give them some snacks, a little bit of food to pick out while they're waiting around. Cocktail hour is always wonderful. People love to have a nice drink. Maybe your guests don't drink. That's okay. You can have something. If you're in the summer months or the fall months, you may be able to do some outdoor activities. For example, some people will do like a little like cornhole, bride and groom cornhole setup. It just depends how formal or how relaxed you want to have. Live music is always a wonderful idea for cocktail hour. That's what we like to call it, between the time of the ceremony while they're doing pictures and the time before you start to eat. So cocktail hour is always a big one. So during cocktail hour, you may have some other activities. You might have live music playing. People love to just sit and listen to some live music. You may also look at getting like a live artist that will either sketch a beautiful rendering of the bride and groom or do a painting of the bride and groom. That would entertain the guests. They love to watch those types of things. Another option is to already have a photo booth set up and ready. So when the guests get to the reception, they can go ahead and have some fun with the pictures, capture a few memories before you get there. But let me warn you, do not turn your wedding into a carnival. You want to make sure you occupy the time. You want to be very gracious and appreciative that they are coming and sitting and waiting for you. Also, make sure that you kind of have a ballpark ahead of time with your photographer as to how much time they're allocating for pictures after the ceremony. That gives you a better idea of how much time you need to occupy for the guests. Okay guys, so we've talked a little bit about a honeymoon fund, whether or not to have one. We've talked about wedding planners versus day of coordinators. What are the options? What are the best opportunities to help you for your wedding? We've also talked about the difference between a sit down versus a buffet. What would be the best for the vibe that you're wanting to create? We've talked about your guests today. We've talked about maybe some things that they aren't as interested in or could really care about that aren't as meaningful to them, as well as things that you can do to really keep them engaged throughout the night, especially during the pictures, after the ceremony, when you have a little bit of a lull time. What are some options of things you can do with the guests to really give them a great experience? So hope you've enjoyed. Make sure you guys subscribe to our channel. We're going to keep sharing a lot more coming up.